Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat. I'm with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
As little as long ago, or as far away as forever. This is where we meet to celebrate what never was as it comes to pass. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We're streaming to you live near Athens, Georgia, and we're here on Studio B. I believe a Mad Painter and Monica are on Studio A. But anyways, I thank you for taking the time to join us, myself and all the many hosts that do utilize Revolution Radio as a platform for truth and doing all the things that we do and speaking about all the things that we speak on and trying to help you to make sense of this crazy world and all of the esoteric aspects of what we're dealing with as far as the current push by the Illuminati and the secret societies that are loosely knitted together and bringing us world government as an agenda and the whole thing with the New World Order and now there's so much awakening. It seems like it wasn't even long ago, maybe even a decade or less, that people really did not understand, had no interest. The New World Order was not even on their radar. And when you made mention of it in any way, most people did not even understand it as concept, had never even heard about it. But yet now, with so much having happened since 9/11 and the attacks of September 11th, 2001, and all the things that have occurred since that time that have forced us as a world to have a little interest and not be so complacent as far as the things that mostly consume our time and our focus. And back then, with it was basically still an age of innocence where people didn't have to take their mind off of their favorite afternoon and evening shows, the different sports that they watched, and going to church every Sunday, and their jobs and what the market was doing, and things like that were the predominant theme of most people's lives. It was still the American dream and all that entailed. Making money, kids were focused on their education and trying to prepare themselves for college or for getting a good job and just going about the whole soft parade in the way that it was maintained. Everybody was basically harmonized with the focus and the whole dream of materialism. The Matrix was just ongoing, and there were no hiccups in the road. And then with the events of that day, I know myself, I remember it was early morning and I had just awoken. I was doing a few things on the computer, internet, searching out a few things. And then I had heard one of my friends had private messaged me, instant messenger back at that time. I can't remember if it was AOL or something of that nature. But right afterwards, I was messaged and they said that, told me to turn on my TV and to check out the news, of which I did so. And I remember seeing I believe it was the South Tower, or maybe it was the North Tower, the first building that was hit, and the smoke was rising up from the corridors of that building. There was a huge gaping hole, and the looks of concern from people down in the streets, and there was a lot of talk of whether this was some kind of accident or some kind of terrorist event. There was still speculation and uncertainty, and nobody knew as to exactly what had happened. Looking back now, it seems like the mainstream news shows knew exactly what was happening and knew what was going to happen. And so, because it's, in my opinion, that a lot of people were already forewarned, and that even a lot of the public relations people from the various airlines, hello, Olive, and the rest of you, thank you for joining us. Yeah, they already knew and were instructed as to something was going to happen, and that they would need to be available to speak with the news and to talk about the events of that morning. FEMA had already flown into New York City the night before. They were there September 10th. Others, Daku, welcome Doc, Kuran, Noodles, Karen, Dharma, Hal, Rapsy, Zippy, all the rest of you. Hold on just a second. All right, I apologize for that. But Sack and Jerry and Blues Girl, and I appreciate all of you, and the rest of you that are in the chat know that all of the hosts here appreciate you as well. Shannon. But anyways, reminiscing just a little about the events of 9/11, because that was the pivotal moment. That was the turning point. That's when everybody realized that the world would never be the same. And the events that occurred that day forced many of us to begin to look into and to study and to open ourselves to new possibility, especially in regards to the possible conspiracy side of what was going on as world. And a lot of us, because of the access to the internet, we were then able to study without having to depend on what the mainstream news was reporting and the one-sided nature of that reporting, which is basically propaganda, and the way that they were able to sway us in public opinion to lead us to a conclusion which they wanted us to draw. And basically, they wanted all of us as Americans to believe that the 19 Al Qaeda terrorists led by Osama bin Laden from some cave in Afghanistan, and that with the use of a satellite phone was able to orchestrate and to mastermind the events of that day. I've got to restore my chat room. Shockwave crashed. But anyways, to orchestrate the events of that day and to bypass the American counterterrorism and the FBI, the CIA, all of the anti-terrorist things that were put into place in order to prevent such a disaster. And so we're supposed to believe that, they were just able to hijack all of these planes all together and, in quick succession, and that they were able to keep the American military Air Force, keep them off of them for over an hour and a half, and to penetrate all of the various intelligence agencies and the airport security, all of that, against countless odds, that they were able to succeed in the pulling off what to all of us was the most fantastic, most awesome, and most horrifying terrorist event ever perpetuated on any country by any group, organization, ever. And so it affected all of us, especially Americans, those of us that were in the country, and especially those that lost loved ones that day. And even though I was not one of those, and I did not know anybody that died in those towers, as an American, I was completely affected, deeply impacted, and I wanted to know more. I wanted to know everything I could about the events of that day, how they were perpetuated, and to study, to look into things I never had before in connection to Al Qaeda and, Iraq, and all the things that they said of these particular individuals or peoples that had attacked us as a country that day. And so, I wanted to know more. And I began to consume everything. I studied everything I could. I watched every documentary, watched all the news events, and I was not one that was awake and aware, that understood the deeper aspects of what was going on as world. I was like most of you were back in that time. I was asleep spiritually to the deeper aspects of, what we are all aware of now, or what many of us are now have awakened to and become aware of, as far as the modus operandi of the Illuminati and the New World Order, and all the secret societies that are duty bound and working in tangent to perpetuate it as an agenda. And that there was so much material available, especially through the internet, that once somebody started researching and looking into and these other people that were already awake and that had put together a timeline of the events of that day, all of the news articles and news reports leading up to um, the those attacks being successful, how the FBI and the CIA and other agencies were stood down, and the terrorists were protected, how certain members of the Taliban were flown out and Osama bin Laden was protected and flown to protection, and the connections between the Osama bin Laden family and the Bushes, Fahrenheit 9/11, even though I believe Michael Moore is basically establishment and part of those he says that he is here to fight against, much like David Icke and Alex Jones and others, that a lot of information came to the forefront that forced other doors open, other windows to be looked into, to be walked through. And that, for myself especially, 9/11 was the thing that led me to want to know more, and that brought me to understanding on some of the, again, the esoteric aspects, the deeper aspects of what we're dealing with as a world. Welcome, Wild Bob. And so, I know it was similar for you. Welcome, Grog, and Hammer, and Monty, and Jerbear. And so I know it was all similar for you as well. And the rabbit hole went so deep. And it kept, it kept going and going and going. And there were more divergent paths, more tunnels to be followed. And basically, since that time, we've not been able to stop. The research is ongoing, and the more we've come to know, the more we've come to understand what little we really do know. And after a few years, after a lot of study on a lot of divergent themes and what we seem to believe are isolated topics, we find that all roads converge and that there's underlying truth behind all things. And so we are all brought in to the center of what seems to be isolated and disjointed and unconnected premises. And that even though they may seem just completely worlds apart when talking about topics like the Bible and conspiracy, government terror, or Satanism and martial law. I mean, just really weird topics, elitists and pedophilia and cannibalism, or I mean just crazy topics and really strange themes, and yet we find that they all line up. And that at some point, no matter what you study, you're brought back to center. And you're forced to understand that there's an underlying truth that connects all of these strange topics. The world of conspiracy with Bible and biblical prophecy, with the ancient aliens and ancient mysteries and Sumerian teachings and Atlantis. And so all of these things are garbled together, and there's an underlying premise that presents itself to us over and over and over, and that no matter which window or door we open, there's the theme of a spiritual war being ongoing. And that, as it says in Ephesians 6, that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but powers and principalities, the rulers of darkness, wickedness in high places. I mean, this is the truth of it. And this is what we are all forced to contend with. And that whether you believe that there's any kind of veracity to the gospel, or you believe that it's completely man-made and you know, it's all just a pack of lies, we are brought back to biblical themes and to the, you know, war between good and evil, light and darkness, and that the perpetuators of evil and those that are the originators of it as far as the world, and we find that they worship the devil, that they are Luciferianism. They are Luciferians and they are Satanists, and that whether we believe, you know, that the forces behind the evil and behind the New World Order have anything to do with the Lucifer as spoken about in the Bible, that wanted to be like the Most High and that was cast out of the heavens, and that tempted 1/3 of the angels of the Most High to join him in rebellion, whether you believe this is all just fairy tale or fantasy. The elites are working from a perspective of that's what they believe, and that this is the certainty, this is the story that they are working from. And then the other part of it is that we find out that they are all of the same bloodline. And that once you come to understand that what the Bible is talking about as far as Eve eating fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that that this fruit is not an apple or a pear or a pomegranate or a fig, but that it symbolically veils a sexual connotation, and that what is being metaphorically spoken about at the beginning that resulted in the fall of humanity is her having eaten fruit from this tree that resulted in her being pregnant, and that this was the point where Satan sired his own children upon the planet, and that there's a whole other being and type of people here on this planet, and that this bloodline, these lineages, they worship their fathers, the devil, and that this is what is referenced in the New Testament, and the Old Testament, and the Gospel, and the Pseudepigrapha, and the Apocrypha, and the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Nag Hammadi Codices, that all of them, when they speak about the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, or the division and the differentiation of the wheat and the tares, or the goat and the sheep, from those that follow the narrow way, or that are walking and trampling on the broad path of destruction, those that are of the left hand and those of the right, that these definitions are talking about and represent these two groups that make up this ancient war. And that even what is spoke about in the war in the heavens and the division of light and darkness, and what the Emerald Tablets, of which I'm going to go into some of that again after the first break, but what the Emerald Tablets speak about as the war between the sons of the law, the sons of light, and the sons of Belial, the children of darkness. We'll be right back. And welcome back, everybody. I was just talking about, how we have this ongoing war now, the enmity between these two different forces, the sons of light and the sons of law, or the sons of Belial, the children of darkness, and that this division precedes even that of Atlantis and the prior times, and what the creation of modern humanity, and that this war goes back to even a division of the angelic forces, even prior to Lucifer and the other rebel angels being cast out of the upper heavens, that this division goes back to the war in heaven, and then plays out with the rebel angels being cast down here to the earth, and that as it talked about in, which I covered this in the last week's show, talking about the Emerald Tablets, we're speaking about the order, the Brotherhood of Darkness, and how they banded together in as an order. Let me read that part again real quick. Because this is where I'm going to be picking up here in just a second. Yeah, and because the Emerald Tablets are about Atlantis and the prior times, and talks about, when the rebel angels were here upon the earth, and that there were good angels as well. There was this war between these angelic forces, and it says, banded together in as order, brothers of darkness, they through the ages antagonists, they to the children of men walk, they always secret and hidden, found yet not found by the children of men. Forever they walked and worked in darkness, hiding from the light in the darkness of night. Silently, secretly, use they their power, enslaving and binding the souls of men. And it continues. I'm going to skip just a little bit. But it continues, even as exist among men the dark brothers, so there exist the brothers of light. Antagonists they of the brothers of darkness, seeking to free men from the night. Powers have they, mighty and potent. Knowing the law, the planets obey. Work they ever in harmony and order, freeing the man's soul from its bondage of night. Secret and hidden walk they also, known not are they to the children of men. Yet know that ever they walk with thee, showing the way to the children of men. Ever have they fought the dark brothers, conquered and conquering time without end. And so we see, even during the Atlantean times, there was a division of these forces, of these two, not only angelic, but human divisions of good and evil. Which brings me to the part that I want to pick up on in what we were reading in the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. This being the third in the series that I've been doing to cover and talk about not only the prophecies connected to the division of these two beings and peoples, the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, but also the ongoing war, the angel wars, which, now these angel wars have reached the earth and have been ongoing on the earth up until even the time of the modern creation of humanity, and that it's been ongoing even since that time, and that even humanity finds itself tugged and forced to align with and take allegiance with one or the other side of this war. That it's dragging most of us to take either the side of good or evil. And that is what differentiates and defines us at either a wheat or a tare, a children of promise or a child of perdition. That either we are going to be counted with the elect and with the minority that will inherit paradise and have a return to our first estate, or we will be counted with the wicked and find as retribution being housed in a place of perdition. And even paradise, as speaking about the third heaven, that it is divided by the wide gulf of the Arturian lake, and that on one side of the gulf, the left-hand side, is the place of perdition, known as Sheol, and the deeper aspects of it, Tartarus. And that the place of paradise is, divided by the city of God, or New Jerusalem, and the surrounding wilderness is called paradise. And so, again, whether you believe or consider all of what I'm talking about now in this segment as being biblical or, prophetic um, in Christian terms, that when you study it and when you really look into these concepts and the whole thing with the conspiratorial side of the New World Order and the Illuminati and all of these secret reports, like the report from Iron Mountain, the Georgia Guidestones, all these false flag terrorist events, Sandy Hook and the Boston bombing, things like the Katrina disaster, these invasions, false invasions, the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq and others, killing of so-called terrorist leaders, the funding of groups like the Taliban and Al-Qaeda and now the Muslim Brotherhood and ISIS. I mean, all these things have at their core this ongoing war, this enmity, this dividing of peoples into one or the other group. And so, all right, let me check the chat room real quick. And of course, if anybody wants to call in to make a comment or ask me a question about the topic I will be speaking on or covering, or anything else, if you just want to talk about something or share a piece of information, you can call 301 421 4053, and I'll be glad to take your call, and I appreciate all of you. All right. Oh, let me bring this up real quick before we go into the text, because this will lead into it as well. I don't know how many of you remember, there was not, I think it was maybe a year or 2 years back, Stan Deyo, in an interview that he was having with, I forget what her name, I think she was from the Power Hour, if I'm correctly. But anyways, he let out on that particular show. He talked about, he said, the buzzword around the Pentagon is that the Sumerian gods are returning back to Earth. And he said that, matter of factly, he said that a Pentagon insider, which those of you that know about Stan Deyo and know about his work with some of these black op groups that he, was involved in reverse engineering some of this anti-gravity technology, and that he's a physicist and a brilliant mind. But anyways, I did an interview with him called Inside Secrets. And this was a couple years back, and we talked about this interview and how even the Pentagon insiders know that the Anunnaki, the Sumerian gods, are returning. And then we had this whole series of articles by Preston James for Veterans Today talking about the presidents, 3 presidents, Obama, Clinton, and Bush all taking the time to fly to Africa covertly, and that they supposedly had met with Marduk. And that Marduk is one of these Anunnaki gods, supposedly the son of Enki, which, for those that don't know, Enki is who we reference, whom Christians reference as Samael, the angel of death, of which the Gnostic texts speak of the angel Samael as being the one that beguiles Eve and impregnates her with Cain, and that Cain was the hybrid, firstborn hybrid scion or child of the devil, referenced in John 8 as being of that wicked one, and that he's the one that also that the synagogue of Satan, those who say they are Jews but are not, that they are the ones that are connected to Cain by bloodline. And that even, like the war between the children of Abraham, Ishmael and Isaac, and Jacob and Esau, David and Goliath, that, this war is ongoing, has been ongoing throughout all the eras, generations of the Old and the New Testament. But anyways, and so supposedly they had met with Marduk. And Marduk is also whom we refer to in Egyptian, the pantheon of Egyptian gods. Enki is Ptah, Ptah, and his son Ra is Marduk. But anyways, and so he released on that particular show talking about these Sumerian gods coming. And this was, before the whole Ancient Aliens series, which is establishing the premise. It's the whole neoteric theology that the ancient aliens are our creators, thus the missing link that the evolutionists or the Darwinians, believers could never find, is because they were the ones that jumped the gun. And according to the Sumerian mythology, Enki slept with these two earth women called Dawn and Dusk, if I'm correct, and that he gave birth to Tiamat and Adapa, who are the equivalent of Adam and Eve in the Christian or the Genesis account. All right, and so, anyways, that will, I just wanted to mention that because that's what we are dealing with now, is that everybody, or a lot of people, are accepting, and this is the new religion. This is the belief system that is sweeping the world. What I reference as the strong delusion that the Bible warns us of, because they love not the truth, that they will believe a lie. And that absolutely, I believe that this is what people are ready and willing to accept, is that the ancient aliens, the fallen angels, the sons of God, according to Genesis 6, that married the daughters of humanity, the daughters of Cain, and created a race of giants, that the rebel angels that came before them, that they are the creators of humanity. And not only the creators, but the benefactors and the saviors. And that, nobody's looking, or much of the world is no longer looking to Christ and his second coming to be the savior of humanity. But that these so-called Anunnaki, or the Sumerian gods, that they're coming to save us. Or that they're here to save us. Anyways, alright, let me read really quick because we're almost to the next part. So it says this: Masters they of the sun power ever unseen, yet the guardians of men. Open to all is their pathway, open to he who will walk in the light. Free are they of dark amente, free of the halls where life reigns supreme. Sons are they and lords of the morning, children of light to shine among men. Like men are they, and yet are unalike. Never divided were they in the past. One have they been in oneness, eternal, throughout all space since the beginning of time. Up did they come in oneness with the All One, up from the first space, formed and unformed. So it's, talking about again those that gathered together to be the brotherhood of darkness, and those that made up the children of light, the sons of the law, that together they form the oneness. Given to man have they secrets that shall guard and protect him from all harm. He who would travel the path of a master, free must he be from the bondage of night. Conquer must he the formless and shapeless. Conquer must he the phantom of fear. Knowing must he gain of all the secrets. Travel the pathway that leads through the darkness. Yet ever before him keep the light of his goal. Obstacles great shall he meet in the pathway, yet press on to the light of the sun. Hear ye, O man, the sun is the symbol of light that shines at the end of thy road. We'll be back for second hour. Alright, welcome back everybody. We do have a caller. Caller, where are you calling from? And did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, this is Doc Who.
Hey Doc, good to hear from you, brother. How are you doing this evening?
Doing real good. Still doing research.
Right on. Well, tell us what you've been looking into, or did you have a focus as far as this particular call, or a question, or comment, anything?
Well, I've been still working on the Saturn death sex cult.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not through with it. Did you get started yet?
No. Feel free. Tell us, because I'm gonna go back to this as a show, and so yeah, let's talk about it.
Have you got a pencil to write this website down?
I can put it in this. I can type it up. Go ahead.
Okay, Anthony Patch, Patch.
Okay.
CERN, Saturn, and Jacob's Ladder. After that.
All right.
Well, he's probably the foremost authority that is telling the truth on CERN. He's been studying CERN for 15 years, and his information seems as solid as a rock.
Well, tell us, what do you think? Do you think that CERN is like Stargate, portal, and the same
absolutely.
kind of thing that the Atlantis and what they were doing during that time?
Yeah. And the other thing they're trying to do with CERN, according to him, is build a plasma bridge to Saturn.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you got to read this stuff. It's about at least 3 hours, but it is well invested to open more mental doors to understand or comprehension actually.
Okay, why a plasma bridge to Saturn?
Well, that's what Jacob's ladder is.
Uh-huh.
That's what it was when Saturn was primarily our sun. The current sun was behind Saturn, and it showed as a halo around Saturn, and that's back during the purple days. The haze we talked about
Uh-huh.
briefly.
Right.
And there was a plasma bridge then from Saturn to Earth, electrically charged particles, and it was visible. Light would hit it, and you could see it, and entities move freely back and forth. So now when Planet X comes through, or Nibiru, or Nemesis, or whatever it's going to wind up being called, or whoever the inhabitants tell us, whatever the inhabitants of that planet tell us it's called, then we'll know for sure.
Uh-huh.
But if it comes through, it's going to make this planet look like the movie 2012, and what happens to the crust of the earth. And the Bible says, there will be no more mountains, which means
Right.
the crust,
Right.
the
Yeah,
crust
I
is
remember.
going to settle.
Yeah, it says not only will the mountains be brought low, but the low places will be brought high. And one of the extra biblical accounts that I study is a book called The Revelation of St. John the Theologian. And it talks about how that the reason that everything is, the mountains brought low and the seas brought high is that the earth is reborn anew in preparation for the return of Yeshua, and that that as it says in Second Peter that the the next time that the world would die by fire, that there would be a new heaven and a new earth. That this is what it's talking about as far as that particular theme. But I just saw this movie called Interstellar. Have you seen that?
No, I don't watch movies. What I do is
Yeah.
I go to the people that do the trailers, and the
Uh-huh.
reviews, and that's all I got money for.
Yeah. Well, this movie was really interesting in that I don't go to the movies to watch them, but I'll watch like the Netflix, because I don't like to do all the commercials on regular TV and all that. I don't have much time for all that. But anyways, one of the interesting aspects about this movie is it was talking about a wormhole and a portal that it they had a colony. The human race was saved, and that they were able to establish this colony outside of Saturn. And so that was really interesting in that, with you talking about this, this Jacob's ladder and this plasma bridge to Saturn. It's strange, that played out in that particular movie. But
Well,
anyways,
they're all those science fiction programs are predictive programming,
oh
and the
yeah, yeah,
Illuminati,
I agree,
yeah,
absolutely.
the Illuminati have to tell what they're going to be doing or what's going to be happening. That's part of their pact and contract with Satan.
Right, right, yeah, exactly. It also reminds me of did you ever see the 2001 and 2010 the Space Odyssey?
I saw the '01, of course.
Yeah, those are all really, really powerful movies too, and talking about like it showed that monolith and how um, one of the astronauts was talking about that there was a similar type of thing on one of the moons of Mars. I believe it was Phobos, and yeah, a lot of all this, even like with the Star Trek series and that one, the Stargate series, Because in the original Stargate movie, they talked about how Ra, what I was talking about with Marduk, the other name for Marduk is Ra, but in that movie, when they jumped through this Stargate portal, it showed that this Egyptian god, he was the overseer over the people of that world. And in the original movie, that he was also the one that these gods were the ones that had created mankind here on this particular planet too, which all ties in with the whole premise that the ancient aliens are pushing.
Yeah, and they had Apophis in that series too that they were always doing battle with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, anything else of interest? Anything else that you've been studying or looking into that has, caught your attention?
We don't have enough time to go in, but I did want to get that one to you, and
Yeah.
I think you probably wrote down that thing about that I told you before about what's his name? Help me out here. Troy McLaughlin
Uh-huh.
and the Saturn death cult.
Right, right. Yeah, he was the one that did that website that I had looked into and read. Maybe I'll try to invite him on as a guest, and we can talk about all this.
Yeah, he's in Australia. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll do that. And just for for you and the rest of the listening audience, I've got quite a few guests lined up coming in about 3 weeks. Carolyn Hamlet's going to join us, Augusto Perez, Douglas Woodward, John Peck, and a few others. And so there's going to be some interesting interviews. But yeah, I'll do that. I'll contact him and ask him if he will join us and elaborate on the Saturn death cult. Why not bring on the experts?
Yeah. He's obviously, and he's got footnotes for all of his research too. It's not like he's making anything up.
Right. Oh yeah. And the better researchers do, when they put together and compile their information, they save all the source reference, which leads them and drives them to their conclusions. Like even when I release all of my books, I am sure to provide the source reference for all of my the basis of my conclusions, so that people can go and study and read it in their original content, in their original format.
Right. Well, another thing, the darkest side of CERN, destruction of souls, critical.
Huh. What's that about?
That's one of its, one of their goals is to capture souls. And CERN is built on Opalia.
Mm-hmm.
Opalia Cum, it's a town where Apollo was worshipped at one time.
Huh.
And CERN is named after Cernunnos, which is one of the dark figures.
Cernunnos, I haven't heard of him.
CERN, UNNOS. You can look it up when you get a chance.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Time.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that.
That's what CERN is named after, the figure, dark spiritual figure, Cernunnos.
So they're saying that, well, I know that it opens Stargate and creates portals, and much like what I've been reading in this Emerald Tablets, about it allowing forces to come into this plane of existence, but how does it capture souls?
If you write this down or type it in, the ring makers of Saturn, there seems to be some evidence to support the fact that those cylindrical cigar-shaped UFOs do capture souls, and then they deposit them in the rings of Saturn. And on Friday night, the story behind the story was Dr. A. True Ott. He and I talked quite a bit too, and he has one of those meters that measures frequencies. He's way into music, and he's a 432 hertz only person too. When you listen to music, because that's the sound of nature and the universe, the way it's supposed to be, instead of 440 hertz. But anyway, he recorded the sounds, and it's tuned to A528 hertz. So that's one to stay away from him. You're always seeing that, in the column on the right on YouTube when we're looking at a video, and you see down on the right, 520 hertz, the healing frequency, the love frequency, and all that. Stay away from 528 hertz.
Okay, I'll definitely.
I sleep with 432 hertz music all night long. I put it on the internet, and they're all 432 hertz.
Well, give us some examples of what 432 is, and what's the difference?
It's only 8 hertz difference, but 432 will make all the water, of which we're roughly 90% water. Some people say 60%, but that's old information.
Yeah.
But it makes all the water in your body, which organizes all of the cells, there are billions of cells in your body, like a snowflake. And then the 440 hertz keeps them in chaos and disarray. There's no organization to the cells in your body when you're listening to 440 hertz.
Well, give us an example
on that too.
Give us an example of what some of the music that is representative of each.
Well, you just have to go on the internet, and you could even look up 432 hertz versus 440 hertz.
Okay.
Goebbels talked Hitler into using 440 hertz music along with fluoride, and it calcifies your pineal gland. The fluoride does, and the 440 hertz just does the rest of the job. And Goebbels told Hitler, it'll make people a lot easier to control.
That's interesting.
And then it was, Rockefeller was involved. I think it was Rockefeller that was involved in getting all the world to tune to A440 hertz. You're tuning to A 440 hertz, then everything is, follows along. It's all in disarray. And Rockefeller, I believe it was, that when they finally got everybody in this country tuning to A440 hertz, they gave away band instruments to schools if they would do that. So, of course, they were seduced by brass and woodwind and all that stuff. Yeah, it's like we can't believe any of the history that we've been told. I keep discovering things every day. Well, I'll just slap my knee on that one.
Right.
Dang.
Right. It's amazing because it seems like everything has an ulterior motive, There's no randomness to nothing.
And who's the father of all lies? But that's the reason I'm really promulgating the Saturn death cult, because that's the root of the evil on this planet. And Saturn is the ruler of time and space at this particular point in, the history of this particular universe. Can't speak for the other universes.
Right. Well, absolutely. I'll take a look at it. And then as far as these hertz are, so particular instruments are aligned to the 432 and certain ones are aligned to 440?
No. Everybody's tuned. When you're tuning your instrument, if you have a strobo tuner or a tone meter or something, and you hit that note just right, you can buy an A432 hertz tuning fork, and you can buy all the different frequencies, that you use in music, tuning fork-wise. They're about $20 for one tuning fork.
So it's not the instrument; it's just that particular.
Well, they tune them. to the 440.
Uh-huh.
So an 8 hertz difference makes that much difference, you know,
In
and
harmony or dissonance.
nature. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can play that 440 music to a plant or an animal or a bird or a tree or the water, and it's off. It's just wrong. And you do the 432, and the plants thrive and respond on and ad infinitum. You know, it is the sound of nature, and all that information is available on the internet until they take it away from us.
Right, right. Well, what kind of, you said you have music that you play, where did you get? I mean, can you purchase specific 432 hertz produced music, or, I mean, how do you know?
Yeah, you can buy it, but I mean it's on the internet. You just look up YouTube 432 hertz music, and there's different categories.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff. It's like I just get on one particular site that's got the sleep type music,
Yeah.
and it just goes all night. And when I get up, go to the bathroom in the morning, it's still going.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I'll check that out.
I sleep like a groundhog, you know. I don't get up and look at my shadow till it's time.
All right, excellent. Well, yeah, if you, I don't know if you taught, you said you know Dr. Ott, but if you talk to him anytime soon, tell him I send my regards. I had interviewed him a long time ago. I did a show with him talking about, um, just the history of the vaccines and how they perpetuated it to create disease, and how doctors instigated, um, giving out vaccines in order to get people sick to increase their clientele. And we talked about the 1917, the Spanish War, and how the vaccines given to our soldiers, was the origin for the Spanish influenza, the huge epidemic there, and he's a very knowledgeable guy. It's
Oh yeah, he's well rounded too.
yeah, absolutely. And so,
I mean, you got to be to escape Mormonism.
oh, he escaped Mormonism, huh?
Yeah, he got out of there. That's the most spoken line in the older movies. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, right. Well, he's very knowledgeable guy, especially being a doctor and coming and being able to embrace the conspiratorial side of what's going on with world, when so many are, so challenged in that way, even when they are confronted with it and faced with it over and over and over, they still will, it's just too difficult for them to make that jump, to finally embrace it as a reality. It's they rather stick their heads in the sand and run from it.
They're like a deer in the headlights because they got nothing to work with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Except sports on TV and Dancing with the Stars, which actually are the fallen stars they're dancing with.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you about real quick was look at the new Smirnoff commercial. On the YouTube, you look up Exposed, the Smirnoff commercial, and it's about Adam and Eve.
Really?
And the fall of man, yeah.
Huh, okay, I'll check that out.
The guy explains it all. It's that RSE website.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll take a look at it.
It's amazing. It's just right in your face,
Right. Yeah, I saw not long ago too. There was like all these stars, and they did a commercial where they basically are taking, like allegiance to the New World Order. It's almost like they're taking the mark of the beast. I don't know if you saw what I'm talking about, but it was one of those right in your face, completely, and trying to indoctrinate us into all of that, and
it's all
getting
about
us
capturing
prepared.
souls. Yeah.
Yeah, getting us prepared.
That's what the guillotines are for. They believe that if they use a guillotine to kill a Christian, that captures their soul, because they think that it takes more than a little bit of time for a soul to leave a body.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's 30,000 guillotines in this country at the FEMA camps.
And
other
so
military
if they use a guillotine, it doesn't give your soul enough time to get out of the body? Is that what they're saying?
That's what they believe. But then they
Huh.
think there's 72 virgins waiting for them, too, but they're wrong. It's 72 Virginians.
Yeah. Right.
It's going to
Well,
be interesting, and
yeah,
we're running
these
out of...
are some strange times, brother.
Oh, man, I'm so excited. I'm positive.
Yeah, me too. I'm not worried about it. And I feel like no matter what comes up and what we're dealing with, that I'm gonna be protected. I'm gonna be all right, and so I'm not
Yep.
sweating it.
Try to bring as many people along with us as we can.
Yeah, exactly. Try to wake up as many as we can and do the work while we still have time.
Yeah. Oh, there's a story. I read a book on the Holy Spirit 40 years ago. I'll be 70 next month.
Oh wow, Doc, you sound so young, brother.
Yeah. Youth is a spirit. I feel as young as I ever did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I've been accused of acting like an 8-year-old. Anyway, I read this book, The Holy Spirit, and the one thing that I remember from that book was this preacher went to speak as a guest speaker, and
Hey.
I'll finish this. It'll be quick after the break.
Yeah. All right. Hold on, Doc. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen, and we're at final segment. I have with me on the line Doc Who. Doc, you had a story you wanted to share with us?
Yeah, and it dovetails into everything that frustrates us for the most part, trying to wake people up. So anyway, this preacher shows up at this little church. The lights are on, and he thinks he's on time, and he waits, and nobody shows up. The door wasn't locked. And so he starts to leave, and when he got to the door, the Holy Spirit told him, preach your sermon. So he turned around, and he walked a few steps, and turned around and started to leave again, and the Holy Spirit told him again, preach your sermon. So he said, oh, yes, Lord, I will. So at that point, it seemed, fruitless to him. But he went up there and preached his whole sermon. And 10 or so years later, a young man came up and said, you don't know me, but I was outside the church listening to your sermon through the window, and I've saved thousands of souls.
Right on.
So, you think you're not reaching anybody, but if you're planting seeds, you may be doing more than you think.
Right.
And dovetailing into that, I went to the Blueberry Festival here in Brooksville, Florida, and there were thousands of people there, and I hung out with Captain Larry, who does copper art, nautical stuff and all that really pretty stuff, jewelry and wall hangings and stuff. He's a real old guy, really nice guy, and I was kind of helping him, he had floods of customers. I said, I'm not the artist, I'm just his friend. And I started telling him about shungite. I got a shungite necklace. You know about what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, I'm going to leave that with you before I go.
All right.
And I said, you know what this is? No, what is that? And I said, it's shungite. It's a frequency modulator. It's a powerful stone that a lot of geologists believe it came from the planet Phaeton when it exploded and also created the asteroid belt. But a big chunk of it landed in Russia near the Finnish border. And it's like a mountain of this stuff. And the water that's next to it, the lake, the water is pure. It is so pure, it's unreal. There's no algae, nothing. It's just pure. And so I've got a shungite Band-Aid, which is just is powdered shungite. And you put it on with this chrome, like duct-like tape. It's a little sticker. I put it on my water faucet in the kitchen, and the coffee tastes so much better. And it modulates frequencies that are harmful, like Wi-Fi, cell phones, which is, what do you call it? That radiation. Microwaves.
Right.
It modulates those. It just zeroes them out, and I've got a shungite Band-Aid underneath my smart meter.
Band-Aid. What's?
Yeah, it's just a tape with the powder underneath and a little protective pad underneath between the tape and the pad. It's powdered shungite, and it's powerful. And they exchange energy between themselves. So you put 3 on your Wi-Fi or a Band-Aid, and it's cosmicreality.net, Nancy Hopkins. And tell her Doc Who sent you if you get some, because it's not that expensive now.
Okay, Cosmic Reality.
.net.
All right, I'm going to look into that too, Doc.
Telling you, I feel better. I sleep better with the 432 hertz music, and I don't take my necklace off, not even in the shower, because it's near my heart.
Uh-huh. Well, hey, Doc, we appreciate you calling in and sharing with us all this incredible information. I'll definitely look into it, and then I'll let you know too as far as getting that individual on as guest. What was his name? Patrick? Is that what?
No. Well, there's an Anthony Patch, but you were talking about
the other guy. Yeah.
The other guy, Troy McLaughlin.
Yeah, Troy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'll definitely be listening if you want me to call in and, three-way it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that'd be good.
Great, because I probably would be more prepared to asking questions.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah,
if you study the material, you'll be as prepared as I am.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna read through it all too when I get a chance. I've been busy, and I guess I can let the listening audience know about this too. I've been translating the Sons of God. Well, one of my listeners actually translated Sons of God and Skyfall and my Lucifer, Father of Cain into Spanish. And yeah, and so I've been formatting those for publication. And Lucifer, Father of Cain is already available in Spanish. So if anybody out there is interested, just contact me at zengarcia.com and let me know, and then I'll, get that out to you. But should be less than a month, and I'll be able to publish the other two in Spanish as well and make them available to the listening audience. And I also have a lady who does voice overlay in California, a really kind lady named Lilith, and she's going to read all my books and make them into audio release, audio files, so people can listen to them instead of having to read them, because I've had a lot of people request that as well.
Great.
Yeah, and so, there's quite a bit going on. And then, I have one other piece of information that I wanted to share with the listening audience as well. My friend, the individual from Bulgaria who sent me the file, the Thracian book on the book of Adam and Ua, the book of Adam and Eve. Well, there's a whole series that is from. It's called the Thracian Chronicles, and it's a huge collection of works. Like, another aspect of it is called the Book of Longinus, the Chronicles of Longinus. And Longinus is the Roman soldier that pierced the side of Christ when he was being crucified.
The Spear of Destiny.
Yeah, the Spear of Destiny. And after he became a convert and he became a disciple of Christ, because he saw all the signs, during the crucifixion, with the earthquakes and the darkness, the moon becoming blood red and the lunar eclipse and all those signs that occurred. And so he knew that he was the Son of God, and he became a convert, a Christian convert afterwards. But anyways, the book, the Chronicles of Longinus, is also part of these Thracian Chronicles, which are not available in English to English-speaking, seekers of truth. And so he and I are, at some point, he's going to translate them, and then we're going to publish them together in a book, the whole Thracian Chronicles, which will include the Chronicles of Longinus, the Book of Adtham and Ua, as well as several other texts that all make up the Thracian Chronicles.
That's great.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. Not only, I want to read them, just to be able to read them, but to make them available to an English-speaking audience as well is going to be fascinating. Because, most people do not know that the Thracians are ancient Christians and that they, as a culture, um, preceded the Sumerians and the ancient Egyptians, and that their writing, their whole language is what became the Egyptian hieroglyphic system. And most people also believe that, the Holy Bible, or the Moses, the account, the 5 books of Moses, are based on ancient Sumerian mythology and the teachings of the Anunnaki, which they're not. And so this is just verification, gives proof as to, the biblical accounting being much older.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited for all that. It's a lot of things going on. And I still have to finish this whole book on the war in heavens, too.
Now you got your hands full, but you can do it.
Yeah, I do.
If you want something done, give it to a busy person. Don't get somebody who's got time on their hands.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and I try to make do with be productive and all I can. So.
Yeah, but don't burn yourself out.
Yeah, no, I balance myself out. I take time to, just to do nothing, and to be with family and to watch the roses bloom and things like that. So.
Great.
All right, Doc. We appreciate you, brother.
If you contact Dr. Ott, or when you contact Dr. Ott, mention my name. He knows me. I was on a show Friday night. He comes on Friday night at 10 p.m. on, I think it's Studio B.
I'll do so, and then if you speak to him before I do, send him my regards.
Will do.
All right, Doc. We'll talk to you soon, brother.
For sure.
God bless you.
God bless you. Bye.
Bye. All right, that was Doc Who. Many of you are very familiar with him. He's quite active in the chat room, and so, but I'm glad to have been able to, and I'm glad he helped me to remember, now all those announcements that I wanted to share with you, because there's a lot on my plate, and I'm really looking forward to. I really want to do that book on the Thracian Chronicles. I think that would just be fascinating and would be hugely rewarding to the public as a whole. And so keep your fingers crossed, and please pray that we're able to do that, because Dr. Stephen Guide, who made them available in the Bulgarian language, he was basically poisoned for, his knowledge and trying to share this information with the world. And so, hopefully I'll have the time and the space, and we'll be able to get it out to people before, anything weird or strange happens. So, all right, I want to read this one last aspect of the Emerald Tablets in the time that I have remaining, because this is the most important and my most favorite tablet. I'm actually going to skip to tablet 8, even though there are aspects of tablet 7 that are interesting. I'm going to go ahead and skip to tablet 8, which speaks about the Atlantis, some of the aspects of Atlantis. And I'm not going to read all of it. I'm going to skip to the most intriguing parts of it, because we've only got a certain amount of time. But it says, know ye, O man, that far in the future invaders shall come from out of the deep. Speak I of it, ancient Atlantis, speak of the days of the kingdom of shadows, speak of the coming of the children of shadows. Out of the great deep were they called by the wisdom of earthmen, called for the purpose of gaining great power. This is again one of those Stargate, out of the great deep were they called by the wisdom of earthmen. Same thing as this whole CERN thing. Called for the purpose of gaining great power. Far in the past, before Atlantis existed, men there were who delved into darkness, using dark magic. Can you say CERN again? Calling up beings from the great deep below us. Same thing as what we've been talking about. Forth came they into this cycle. Formless were they of another vibration, existing unseen by the children of earth men. Only through blood could they have formed being. Only through man could they live in the world. So, this again is verification of the opening of these stargates, the invitation of these beings delving into dark magic, calling up beings from the great deep below. Forth came they into this cycle. Formless were they of another vibration. I mean, come on. If you don't see how this all ties into what we're living with now. In ages past were they conquered by the masters and driven below to the place whence they came. But some there were who remained hidden in spaces and plains unknown to man. Lived they in Atlantis as shadows, but at times they appeared among men. When the blood was offered, forth came they to dwell among men. So when, like the Mayans, when they ripped out the still beating hearts of all those people, offering the blood to the sun in sacrifice, these dark entities feed on that energy and on that blood sacrifice, on that fear, and on all that frenzied emotion. Now here's the description of those beings. In the form of man moved they amongst us, but only to sight were they as our men. Serpent-headed, meaning reptilian, dragon-like, the feathered serpent, the Nakash, when the glamour was lifted, but appearing to man as men among men, meaning that they could shapeshift and they could present themselves as being human in form and in appearance, but that they were something other. Much like that movie They Live, where when the guy put on the sunglasses, he could see that these alien beings, these ancient aliens, these seraphic angelic beings had interspersed themselves and immersed themselves among humanity. Crept they into the councils, meaning the governments of humanity, the organizing power structure, the infrastructure of those that make decisions and rule over. Crept they into the councils, taking forms that were like unto men. meaning that they possessed and took over those that sit on the thrones of the world, the kings, queens, princesses, and princesses, slaying by their arts the chiefs of these kingdoms, and taking their form, they rule over man. So secretly, and this, reminds me of a story of Baal taking over the form of King Solomon. For 3 years, he ruled as the king, and the dog knew that it wasn't King Solomon, and all the people knew that there was something different about him. But King Solomon was banished from his own kingdom, was cast out, and it took him 3 years and much prayer for him to, and I'll share that story at some point, but he was finally able to find the ring that gave him the power to rule over the demons, and utilizing the power of that ring, because he had abused his position, and he was restored after 3 years, and his wife cut open this fish that had the ring that he had lost, that gave him the power to rule over the demons and the powers and the principalities. And he was restored to his seat. But anyways, that's what they do. They take over the forms, possess the bodies, and present themselves as these rulers in order to, control the destiny and the fate of humanity. So, crept they into the councils, and taking forms that were like unto men, slaying by their arts the chiefs of the kingdoms, and taking their form they ruled over man. Only by magic could they be discovered. Only by sound could their faces be seen. Sought they from the kingdom of shadows to destroy man and to rule in his place. Just a little bit more. But know ye, the masters were mighty in magic, and able to lift the veil from the face of the serpent, able to send him back to his place. Came they to man and taught him the secret, the word that only a man can pronounce. Swift then they lifted the veil from the serpent, and cast him forth from his place among men. Yet beware, the serpent still liveth in a place that is open at times to the world. Unseen they walk among thee in places where the rites have been said. Again, as time passes, onward shall they take the semblance of men. So, again, it's a warning. Thoth is warning us that these draconic angels, these seraphic, angelic-like beings, these powers, these principalities, these rulers of darkness, that they are doing this, that they are possessing and working through the kings and queens, presidents, prime ministers, taking over their bodies and possessing them, and that they rule over man. And they are guiding us, leading us into the New World Order, the agenda of world government, and the battle of Armageddon. God bless all. Pick it up next week.